What's going on, everybody? It is the one and only Q from Retro Q Gaming, coming at you from the cyberpunk future of the year 2020. That's right, flying cars and shit, replicants, new Coca-Cola, it's all here. It's all now. Deal with it, embrace it. And speaking of cyberpunk style shit in the mad future of 2020, we're going to look at the state of VR in 2020, mainly because, well, I kind of wanted to do this early or, well, late last year, but I said I'd hold off just a little bit. And thankfully I did, because within the last couple of weeks, the Epic Games Store gave away Superhot for free. And naturally, because I refused to support them, what I did is, to spite them, I went out of my way to go to Steam and bought the VR version of Superhot, which thankfully was on a slight sale. It's something I'd been wanting to do for a long time now, but I just never pulled the trigger on it, if you'll excuse the play on words. But over the last few days, I've got a decent amount of Superhot VR in, and it's prompted me to talk about the state of VR going into 2020. The main reason for that is because we potentially have this year the first true killer app for VR, which has long been overdue at this point. That potential killer app, of course, being Life Alyx when it launches in March, and it promises to be the most ambitious and biggest VR title ever. Probably even for a long time. Of course, I don't count any of that PSVR trash because it looks like PS2 games. But no, here in the glorious PC Gaming Master Race, we talk about proper ones. And here is where someone takes a shot at Superhot for looking the way it does. Now, before we talk a little bit more about VR, of course, there are many different headsets out there. We might touch on a couple of them during this video. But for the purposes of all of this, everything I talk about is due to my experience on my Oculus Rift, just so you know which headset I have. Now, when it comes to VR games, there's many big problems that both developers and players have to overcome. How do you deal with motion being one of the bigger ones? A lot of games don't have full locomotion, meaning you can't just walk around everywhere and control everything. And some of them opt to do the thing where you can kind of point where you want to go and jump around. And typically, to many people, the whole jump around thing, the teleportation one, is a little bit disappointing because it's not perfect. But I will say, in one of the best VR games I've ever played, Robo Recall, you have that whole movement, jumping, teleportation ability. It's highly precise and customizable, so it works really well in the way they've implemented it. Again, it's not perfect. I know we'd like to be able to move around a bit better and whatnot, but allegedly, it's to help with viewer confusion. I mean, if you're looking one way and your sticks and fingers and thumbs and all are going completely different ways, it could possibly be a bit of a mess. I haven't played any games where stuff like that has come up, so I can't really speak on that one. There's also the whole control scheme. Do you sit down to play? Or are you able to play a certain game while sitting down? Can you do it while standing up? Do you need a large play area to move around in? Can you do it with the Oculus Touch controllers? Can you use an Xbox One joypad? There's a big, wide variety of problems and situations that need to be overcome when making these games. And of course, because the headsets are still relatively niche, no company wants to spend $20 million developing a high-profile VR game, well, maybe except for Valve, when the market is so small. And while the announcement of Life Alyx has had Valve Index sales and HTC Vive Pro sales just fucking flying out of there, everyone buying up all old Oculus Rifts, everyone buying all the new headsets and all too, this looks extremely promising for the future of VR. I personally can't wait to play Life Alyx. I'm not going to be playing it at launch, with a little bit of an asterisk there. I am most likely not going to be playing it at launch. The only way I will be is if they release the RTX 3080 Ti's before then, because then I can pick up a Valve Index at the same time. And the game will come with that included, and it'll be the best version of the headset and whatnot. Now, of course, when March rolls around, who knows, maybe I'll see clips, maybe I'll see trailers, maybe I'll see all sorts of other stuff, and I will just completely buckle and cave and play it on my Rift. Who knows? But let's go back to VR for a second. While VR still does lack that killer app, and sure, maybe one game, in the case of Life Alyx, won't be enough of a complete killer app for people to invest in it on a wide enough scale, it's clearly proved that already a lot of people are invested in this, or should say, are investing in this strictly because of Life Alyx. But let's talk a little bit about VR and how it works in some of the other games. Now, the two games that I've spent the most time playing, and I feel like are the most relevant, because, I mean, when you talk about it, Super Lucky's Tale is a fun game to play in VR, but it's not a real good demonstration of the technology. Sure, it's fun to look around and whatnot in whole 3 dimensions, but the whole movement thing, the whole looking around thing, the basically being in VR thing doesn't really come into the controls too much. So for the purposes of this, we're going to look at Robo Recall and Superhot. Now, Robo Recall was my primary one that I used pretty much the majority of the time up until very, very recently. And that was great with the whole jumping around thing, grabbing robots, slapping them around with their own body, arms, their legs, their heads, their whatever it is, throwing them around at other enemies, jumping around, whipping out your guns, slow motion, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. It was really good, picking bullets out of the air, throwing them back at enemies, grabbing enemies, turning their own weapons against them. It was really fun, and it's really good and really well done in VR. I highly recommend everyone out there to play it if you have a compatible headset and a decent computer. I'm not sure how much it costs or anything like that because it came free with my Rift when I bought it. But if you don't feel like paying for the full version of it, at least try the free original tech demo version. It's called Bullet Train. It originally started as a tech demo, went so well that they made it into Robo Recall. But I will say that as great as I think Robo Recall is and so much fun to play, I do feel like Superhot VR really outshines it in the application of VR. Because the big thing when it comes to Superhot is movement and motion. It's about moving side to side, ducking, dodging bullets, left, right, center, up, down, whatever it is. You can hide, crouch down in real life. Hide behind tables, hide behind barrels, hide behind whatever it is to dodge those bullets. I found plenty of times where I've ascended to the levels of Neo and I just became the one dodging bullets like that. Turning my head ever so slightly to look at them as they whiz right by me as I'm leaning under or around them. My only criticism when it comes to Superhot VR and how it handles everything is movement to a degree. The fact that there is no movement, really. Sure, you can sidestep left and right, you can take a step forward, take a step back, crouch, lean everywhere, look around, whatever it is. But you can't explore the world. All the settings and everything you're given, the levels you're given, are extremely small. Not that it's exactly a bad thing because it works easily in the case of Superhot and what you're intended to do. With the whole dodging bullets thing, it would be considerably easier in Superhot if you could just jump around everywhere. But I will say this, out of everything I've played for VR headsets at this point, Superhot is extremely fun, Robo Recall is extremely fun. But Superhot is definitely the best application I've played when it comes to VR, with the stuff like its movement, its controls, etc, etc. As for if it's worth buying a VR headset in 2020 just yet, well, frankly, we don't know. Based on everything I've experienced and everything that's out already so far and that I have tried, it's a nice little fun extra, but you're not really missing a huge amount just yet. All of that may change in March when Life Alyx comes out. I'm sure the VR sales numbers and install base will continue to skyrocket at this point. And maybe with the inevitable success of Life Alyx, other companies will look at it and use it as an example and say, oh, well, if we put effort in and make a proper, true experience, people will not only buy it if they have a headset, people will buy headsets for us. Now, just before we end out the video real quick, I do want to say, no matter how many times I do it and how many times I play it, every single time I go for maybe a week or more without using my Rift, it forces me to redo the setup tutorial. Now, I don't mind that, but I will say this, every single time I'm doing that tutorial and I put on the headset, you see everywhere around you. You just see it. The sound, the music, the realization that you've basically just stepped into another world. Not so much like you would when you're turning on another game in front of you, but when it's everywhere in front of you. When your entire vision in 3 dimensions, 360 degrees, is just completely encompassed and enveloped by the new virtual world you've stepped into. That gives me a little feel every time. I'm not gonna lie, I love that feeling every single time that I have to do that. Sure, it was better the very first time I ever set it up, but it still gets me to this day. But where do you sit on VR? Have you tried it? Are you dying to try it? What have you tried if you've tried it? Are you waiting for Life Alyx? Do you think it's going to be any good, or what's the deal? Let me know all that good stuff in the comments section below. Hit the appropriate button to let me know how I did on the video, and while you're at it, why not head on over and hit the subscribe button and even ring the little notification bell. Granted, getting a notification from YouTube in current year about a new video upload or a live stream or whatever is a whole other story. But hey, at least you can say you tried, am I right? As always, thank you so much for watching, and remember, stay super hot.